guys, it's Jess from Peace Up Books, and today I'm here with my April wrap up. Wow. I read 19 books this month, so not too shabby. I was a reading machine. I think I read 4 or 5 Black Dagger Brotherhood books and a lot in between, and so I have a lot of good books to share with you, so I'll go ahead and get to them. I will say I did share the first book I read this month in my March wrap up because I finished it on the first day of April and filmed after that, so I did read Lover at Last by J.R. Ward as my first book, but I talked about that already, gave it 5 out of 5 stars, so yeah. Gonna go ahead and get to the books I read. The first book I read actually comes out this Tuesday, so check it out, and that is The Bride Test by Helen Hoang. This is the companion to The Kiss Quotient. I did receive an ARC from Berkeley Romance, so thank you so much to Berkeley for sending me this ARC. I do have a finished copy now, but this is my ARC, and I loved this. So I have a full review for this, which I will link it down below. I'm not going to say too much about this. This is about Esme, who's from Ho Chi Minh City, and she's really poor, and she's working at a cleaning job at this like business building, and this woman comes into the bathroom and then asks her to marry her son. And her son is Kai, who lives in the US, and he is autistic, and so he feels like he has no emotions and is incapable of loving people, and so Esme has to move in with him, and it's their romance, and she's got to kind of court him for 2 months and see if he will marry her, because the mother thinks that he will never marry anybody. And this is Michael's cousin, is Kai, and I will say Kwan's book is next. I'm so excited. I believe his name's Kwan. I'm pretty sure. I'm super awful with names, but already dying to read book 3 in this series, but it's all companion series, so you can read this as a standalone, but they do talk about Michael and Stella, which I loved, so yes, 5 out of 5 stars, absolutely love this. Next, I read The King by J.R. Ward. This is another Black Dagger Brotherhood book. This is massive. I read this when I was going to the release event for The Savior, so I had tons of spoilers for the rest of the series while I was at that event, but this is Wrath's book again. Wrath got book 1, and I think this is either 11 or 12, so we haven't had Wrath's book in a while, and I loved it. I really wasn't a fan of Wrath's first book. The first book, if you don't know, is like not the best. It just took me a long time to get into. I think it's because there's a lot to learn about the world, so I wasn't a huge fan of book 1, but I loved Beth and Wrath's story in this one, so I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. These are vampire romances, if you didn't know. Next, for my school's book club, I did read 5 Feet Apart by Rachel Lippincott, and this one you probably have already heard of it, and it is a movie, and I believe the book was written in knowing that it was become a movie, or like as it was being written, the film rights were bought. This came out, and then the movie like just came out. So this one is about 2 teenagers with cystic fibrosis, and so they medically are not allowed to be near each other, and so they agree to become friends and stay 5 feet apart, and they're falling for each other, and it's like a very doomed romance from the start. I loved this book. It was such a quick read, but it was so unique, and it wasn't like cliche like I thought it would be, like Fault in Our Stars kind of thing. It took its own turn, so it wasn't trying to be another Fault in Our Stars, which a lot of books have tried to do since the Fault in Our Stars came out, so I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was just super cute. I recommend it to all my kids. I'm a teacher, so all my students I recommend it to, and I just loved it, so 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was an e-arc from the author, and I already have a full review of it, which will be linked down below, and that is Praying for Rain by B.B. Easton. This is a pre-apocalyptic story, but like they've known for a year that the world is gonna end, so like the world's already in mass chaos, and they're just waiting for like doomsday to come. This is about Rain, who is, I believe she's like 18, and she is waiting for the world to end, and she runs into Wes, who is back into town. He used to grow up there, and then he moved out, so she doesn't remember who he is, and he's back, and he's determined to live. He's like, I'm not gonna die when the world ends. I'm gonna be around after that. And so she's kind of like roped into his life, and he doesn't want her to be there. He's totally focused on surviving on his own, and then they kind of lives get intertwined, and they start falling for each other, and I couldn't put this book down, and the ending was like, holy crap, what's gonna happen next? It is, I believe, a trilogy, and so book 2 doesn't come out for a couple months, but this was so good. If you want a really unique, amazing new adult romance about the apocalypse happening, you need to read this book. 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is on audiobook, and I listened to a lot of it while I was driving home from a Polycon from Washington, D.C., and I didn't finish it in March, and so I finally got around to finishing it, and that is Until You're Mine by Cindy Madsen. This is a fighting romance, kind of. Our main character has grown up in the MMA gym because her dad and all of her brothers are fighters, and her dad runs the gym, and so she worked there, and then she went away to college, I think, and now she's trying to get into an art job, program, art studio, something. I'm bad at knowing that lingo. And so she is working her summer at the fighting ring gym and trying to clean things up that the other previous secretary completely just ruined and was awful. And so she is working there in the summer and waiting to hear back if she is being accepted by this gallery for her art. And this new fighter shows up, and she has had really bad past relationships with a fighter, and so she doesn't want to get involved with another one, but there is intense chemistry. It's kind of a hate to love. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I just like couldn't stop listening and really wanted to know what happened next, and it was just fun. It was like kind of an office romance too, because she's there to work and then he's always around, and I really liked it. The next book I read was Meetcute by Helen. This is a new romance that she came out with this past month, I believe. I don't remember when this came out. It came out very recently. I was given a finished copy from the author and Forever Romance, so thank you to them for sending me a copy of this. And based on the cover, I thought this was going to be a romantic comedy, and I read Pucked by Helen years ago and loved it and thought it was hilarious, and I thought this was going to be like something like that with that humor. Unfortunately, it was a very serious romance. It starts out with them having a meet cute at college. He is a child actor, kind of child. He's not acting anymore. And so she was a huge fan of his show, had a super big crush on him, and they literally run into each other when they meet in college, in law school, and so they go to law school together, and now it is years later. She has a grudge against him for something he did, and his parents died, so he needs to have someone to take care of the trust fund for the sister, and he's trying to get custody of his sister. So that is a very serious plot line, and I just couldn't really get into it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. There was this huge reveal at the end that I called from like 20 pages in. I'm waiting to figure out if it's actually right, waiting for them to explain that it's what I think it is, and it doesn't happen until the end. So it was okay. I wanted a fluffier romance based on the title and the cover and the synopsis, but it kind of missed the mark for me, but I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read I'm not a fan of. I listened to it on audio, and that is Room Hate by Penelope Ward. I'm just not a huge fan of Penelope Ward's books in general. I've never given one of her books 5 out of 5 stars unless she's writing with Vi Keelan. And this one is about a girl whose grandmother dies and leaves her like beach house, half of it, and then half of it to the boy she grew up with that she ran away from and like never saw again when they were younger. And so it's their romance, and some things just didn't make sense to me. She's a teacher, and she's really young, so she's only been teaching a few years, and she talks about how awful her mom is. So I'm assuming she has a lot of college debt, yet she was able to take an entire year off from teaching and have enough savings to do that and pay for something else that I can't tell you, and be totally fine. And I'm like, that does not sound realistic. Pretty sure I mean, I'm pretty financially stable. I'd probably be able to take a whole year off without being paid, but like, I don't think you are fresh out of college. But okay. And there's a trope in here that I hate, and I'm probably gonna reel it now because something else happened, where he drank her breast milk and really liked it. Like, that's so disgusting. I'm sorry. Like, breast milk is not meant for adults to drink. No. And she was so obnoxious in the fact that she was so insecure about the relationship that she would show up places and not tell him just to catch him cheating. She's like, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm not going to tell him I'm there, and I just want to see if he's cheating on me. It was annoying. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't want to finish it, but I didn't have that much left, and so I just did, and I did not like this book at all. The next book I finally read was Angel's Blood by Nalini Singh. This is book 1 in the Guild Hunter series. It is. And our main character is a vampire hunter, and she's like one of the most skilled vampire hunters in the world right now because she has this ability that she was born with where she can really sense them. And she is called upon by an archangel to help track down someone, and that's the story, and it's her and that archangel's romance. And I thought the paranormal world was really cool, and how the angels are the ones that are making the vampires, so the vampires serve their angels, so the vampire hunters are hired by angels to hunt down the vampires that aren't serving their lords, whatever. And it was really cool. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. It was kind of insta-lovey to me, but I've heard the other books get a lot better, so I'm excited to continue on the series. Really good paranormal series to start out with, so I can't wait to read more. The next book I read was an arc from Berkeley, and that is Hot to the Touch by J.C. Burton. This is book 1 in her Firefighter series. It's like a Brotherhood by Fire novel, and so it's about these 3 men who are foster brothers and then turned adoptive brothers because they grew up on the streets together, and so our main character was kind of like the ringleader of them, and he has a lot of issues with his past, and I felt like that was way overdone throughout this whole book. Like, constantly we were reminded that he didn't like to think about the past, he didn't want to talk about the past, he wanted to move on, which is hard because our love interest, they rescued her from like a smoke fire. It wasn't actually a fire, of her tattoo shop, and she actually grew up with them in the streets, and so hasn't seen them since they were rescued from a fire themselves and adopted by the firefighter that rescued them. And so it's a lot about the fact that they can't confront their pasts and he doesn't want to talk about it, but it's their romance and they grow closer because she has to move in with him and his brothers because they offer her a spot because she just lost her house and her tattoo shop. It was okay. I feel like it was very surface level, like not a lot really happened, and I was kind of bored with it a lot. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was just okay. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'm kind of intrigued by book 2 because we were set up the romance a little bit and we know who it's for. It's one of his brothers and someone else in the book, so I was kind of let down by this, but I think I will enjoy the rest of the series. The next book I read, I knew was going to be a tearjerker because everyone at the Savior event that I went to for Black Dagger Brotherhood talked about this book, and that is The Shadows by J.R. Ward. This one, I actually didn't own this one yet. I've been collecting them over the years in paperback, and I didn't have this, and it's like one of those floppy paperbacks, and I'm so obsessed with it. But I cried at the end. I have not cried in a single Black Dagger Brotherhood book yet, and this had me tearing up. Oh my gosh, so emotional. Trez is actually a shadow, so we do get a different aspect of like the culture in the Black Dagger Brotherhood world. He's not a vampire, he's not a sympath, he's a shadow. So it was really good. I loved it, gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Can't say much about the plot, but you should all read this series like right now. The next book I read was Enthralled by Gianna Darling. This is book 1 in a duet, so there is going to be another one. There is a cliffhanger, and this is Cosima's story. She is Italian, I believe. She's a model, and she ends up being sold into sex slavery by her father because he's in a lot of debt to like the mafia. So she is sold to Lord Davenport, who is Alexander Davenport, and he is a lord in England, so she's shipped off to Britain, and she's kept as a sex slave. And it's their romance. So it is a very dark romance. But we do see Alexander changing and becoming more human in our eyes, and I really liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The pacing was a little off in the beginning and the end. Like the middle is when I could not stop reading. So I was like hooked, and then things happened too fast in the beginning and the end, and it was kind of hard to get my head wrapped around all the characters in the beginning because a lot of people were introduced, but I really enjoyed it. I need book 2 now, and Gianna Darling's just amazing at dark forbidden romances, and this is definitely a dark romance, so read with caution, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Defy Me by Tahera Mafi. This one I have feelings about. So this is book 5 in the Shatter Me series, and I feel like I should give it 3 stars. I gave it 4 stars, but it was really short, so it was like not even 300 pages. Oh, it was over 300 pages, but I'm not gonna spoil something for you. We have to like skip a page. So we skip this page, have this page, skip this page, and have the beginning of a chapter. So we wasted a lot of pages because they were really short chapters. So I feel like it was less than 300 pages total. And it felt very much like a filler book. Like this could have been a novella, honestly. A lot of the stuff was flashbacks to what happened in their past that was revealed at the end of book 4. And Kenji, I love Kenji, but his chapters were pointless and stopped after halfway through the book because we needed a way to figure out what was happening with all the groups of characters that weren't together. So we had Kenji's point of view, but it was pointless, honestly. And it was just okay. Something happened in the end that I thought was a little overdramatic that didn't need to happen. So this definitely could have been a novella, and I feel like was just a bridge book between book 4 and book 6, because like 6 is what we want to know what happens. This one just said, oh, this is what the characters are doing and this is what they learned about their past. So yeah, it was okay. I gave it 4 stars initially. I feel like it's more 3.5, maybe round up to 4, but not what I wanted. The next book I have to talk about finally has a cover. I did review it before the cover was released, and this book comes out in a week, I think, and it is Top Secret by Elle Kennedy and Sarina Bowen. It is a new romance from them. They have not written together in 3 years, and their previous series, Him and Us, is like super popular and super good. This one is completely non-related to that. It is a college romance between 2 frat brothers, and it is an enemies to lovers romance, a like miscommunication romance. So Keaton's girlfriend of 6 years kind of wants to spice up their relationship, and so he says he'll find someone to do that for them, and gets on this app and starts talking to this guy and kind of starts to have feelings for this guy, and he's like never felt like he was gay before, and so it's kind of him understanding his feelings and what he wants in life, and it's such a good enemies to lovers, and I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. If you want to hear my thoughts, watch my review and watch out for this book. The next book I read was an ARC from Berkeley, and that is Waiting for Tom Hanks by Carrie Winfrey. This comes out in June, and I started this book and I was so excited because it takes place in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from. She lives in German Village, which I've been to. Like, I run the half marathon in Columbus, and they run through German Village, so I've been there before. They talk about the book Loft, which I've been there before, so this is very sentimental to me. But this is about a girl who wants to work in, wants to work in the film industry, writing screenplays, but she works as a freelance journalist right now, and she always goes to a coffee shop to write, where she has 2 really close friends, and there's a movie in town, and she's like, well, I should work on that movie film. So her uncle knows the director, and so gets her a job, and she's waiting for her Tom Hanks, her perfect rom-com love interest with a cute meet cute, stuff like that. And she ends up butting heads with the main actor, and it's their romance. This book was just okay to me. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's a high 3 out of 5 stars. And I really wanted to love it because of the Ohio rep in it. I love that. But I feel like if it wasn't from my town, I wouldn't have loved it as much. The romance was okay. It's just like a nice, sweet romance. I feel like she was a little touchy, and like there was some miscommunication and misinterpretation of things on her part that I was like rolling my eyes at, because I'm like, come on, really? You're getting annoyed about that? Like, it was a joke. Like, she was very touchy, and it was just okay. And the ending kind of felt a little rushed, kind of non-believable to me. So, I mean, it was a cute ending, like what ended up happening, but what led up to that was kind of annoying. I don't know. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I wanted more, and it was just like fluff. It was just like nice. Nothing super special. It was a high 3 though, but I can't give it a 4 because I didn't love it that much. So that's my thoughts. Next, I read The Beast by J.R. Ward. This is Rage's story, and it's his second book. So Rage got book 2 in the series, and this one was just okay. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I was so bored during most of this. I was like pumped in the beginning. I was listening to it on audio. I've been listening to audio and physically reading it, like switching back and forth, which I love doing because it makes the book go by so much faster. But this was just okay. I'm not a huge fan of Rage, and it was kind of boring. And it was cute what they go through, but again, it was kind of boring, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I still liked it. Like, it's the Black Jacket Brotherhood series. I'm giving it a 4-star. But it wasn't a 5-star read to me. The next book I read was a poor decision on my part, because I read this book the same weekend I saw Endgame, and the same weekend the Game of Thrones winter battle happened. And that's Making Faces by Amy Harmon. So I bawled my eyes out in Endgame, cried in this book, and then sobbed during Game of Thrones. Ugh, sobbed. That's all I can say about that. So, this one is about a girl who has never felt pretty, and she has been best friends with her cousin who has this muscular disorder where his muscles don't grow, and so he's gonna die soon. He does not have a long life expectancy, and so it kind of flashes back between high school and then the present, where our main love interest goes off to war with his 3 best friends, and is the only one that comes back. And when he comes back, he is completely disfigured because of how the other guys died. And so it is her and his romance, and it's heartbreaking. I couldn't relate more to a main character than our main character in this book, and how she felt about herself and her relationships, and I was so glad we finally had someone I could relate to like that, who had so many insecurities that every girl has. Yeah, it was a super sweet romance with our main character Ambrose. He so heartbreaking. He was like the most beautiful man ever before going off to war, and now he doesn't know how to deal with being disfigured and doesn't want anybody to see him and works at night so that nobody sees him. And so he definitely has survivor's guilt, and some people blame him for the other guys dying. So very emotional military romance that I shed some tears about at the end. I couldn't help myself. I didn't sob like I've heard people did because I knew what was gonna happen. Like, I've been told this is sad, so I knew something sad was gonna happen. So I prepared myself, but I still teared up at the end. 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was When August Ends by Penelope Ward. This was my pick what I read next for April, so I finally read it. I'm not gonna have a whole video dedicated to it because like I don't have that many good things to say about it. This is an age gap romance, which I didn't know. I didn't even read the synopsis when I went into it. This girl is 19 and she is living with her mother because her mother suffers from depression. She feels like she can't leave. She was supposed to go off to college, but she didn't. And she's dealing with stuff that happened with her sister like a year or two ago. And they always rent out their boathouse, and this guy's staying there and he's 35 and it's their romance. And I will say in the beginning I hated our main character. She was probably the main reason I didn't like this book. She was so whiny and annoying and way too over the top in her emotions because like she walks into his boathouse to clean because she didn't think he was there. He walks out in a towel and he's like, can you get out? And she runs away and she's like, oh my god, he was so mean. Like, oh my god. I'm like, you were in his room when he was like almost naked. Like, obviously he doesn't want you to be in there. I would tell someone to leave too. And like, there were so many things that she overreacted about, and she was like so immature in my eyes that I didn't even think there was any way they could be in a relationship together, because when I like my age gap romances, the younger person's definitely always acts more mature, and that's why the relationship works. Like, it's gross when they're like whiny 15-year-old age acting with a 35-year-old. So then there were secrets revealed at the end that I thought were a little over the top that didn't need to happen. So I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was alright. Kind of forced myself to finish it because I wasn't really a fan. And those are all the books that I read in April. Thank you for sticking around. This is a very long video and I apologize, but let me know down below if you've read these, what your thoughts are, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.